This podcast is brought to you by Australia's LGBTQIA+ community media organisation, Joy. Keep Joy on air by becoming a member, a subscriber or donate. Head to joy.org.au. Joy, a diverse sound for a diverse community.
Welcome to Still Here, Still Queer, the show that celebrates the fierce, funny and fabulous lives of our rainbow elders. Each week we share stories, music and conversations that honour our rich history, challenge ageism and spark connection across generations. Whether you're a proud elder, a curious ally or just here for the glitter and wisdom, welcome. We're still here, still queer, and we're not going anywhere.
Okay, well, it's Gillian here with you. Pete's here also. Slight technological challenges that we're having, but happy to be here. Today is an amazing show. We've got people from something I've never heard of before, the Silver Pride Advocacy Network. And we've got three wonderful guests. We've got Jo Alley, she's the project coordinator of LHA Australia, and she's worked in HIV health promotion and policy areas for over 25 years. She's passionate about working alongside disadvantaged and marginalised groups. She's been leading the development of the Silver Pride Advocacy Network, so we're going to find out all about that. I think what we need to know straight up before we introduce our next guests is, what the hell is the Silver Pride Advocacy Network?
Yes, good question. So I work for LGBTIQA+ Health Australia, otherwise known as LHA, and we've developed the Silver Pride Advocacy Network over the last 12 months. So it's a national network. We're aiming to support LGBTI older people to have a voice in discussions around ageing and aged care in Australia.
Fantastic.
And it is great. We've got an advisory committee for the project, a living experience advocacy panel, which is made up of 15 very diverse LGBTI older folk. They're a highly skilled bunch, and Fran, who is on later in this show, is one of our fabulous elite members. And we've got a monthly newsletter aimed at LGBTI older people and their allies.
So who came up with this idea? Because it seems like a no-brainer, but that doesn't necessarily mean it happens. You know, how have you managed to get this happening?
Well, it's been exciting actually as a journey. We're funded by the Commonwealth Department of Health and Aged Care, and over the last 16 months, we've been working out a structure for it and come up with these three elements, three parts, and I guess it's all about giving people a voice, giving our community members a voice, and it builds on our strengths as community advocates because we've got such a long history of advocacy and activism.
We have. We don't want to stop now that we're getting older. And we've also got Michael Frommer. Are you with us now, Pete?
I hope I am.
Terrific. Tell us a little bit about Michael.
Hello, everyone. We've also got Michael Frommer, who is in the Ageing Policy and Research Lead, is the Ageing Policy and Research Lead at LGBTIQA+ Health Australia.
Which luckily we can just call LHA from now on.
Nice. Yes. And I believe he has a passion. You have a passion for human rights, having worked previously at the Australian Human Rights Commission in the LGBTQIA+ portfolio and in HIV policy prior to that. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me. Lovely to be here.
And what's
Michael
Yes, correct.
I'll tell you what Michael's doing. Michael's leading the development of LHA, not the
Great.
acronym. LHA is Silver Pride Navigator. Now, it hasn't launched yet, so you can't rush off and have a look at it yet, but the information website is going to provide LGBTQIA plus elders with resources to help guide them as they age, including what government subsidies they may be eligible for, LGBTQIA plus specific support and referrals to other LGBTQIA plus community and older persons community organisations. So it sounds like a fabulous project, Michael. Tell us a bit about it.
Navigator.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, the Silver Pride Navigator is incredibly exciting, and it's sort of like the interrelated, interdependent project along with Joe's Silver Pride Advocacy Network. So the Navigator is really there to fill a gap that I think we can probably relate to in terms of any sector where we haven't previously had to engage in. And so people, as they age, thinking about what am I eligible for, what's available, and really being a bit overwhelmed with a bureaucratic or system sort of overwhelm, and thinking, and plus I'm an LGBT or I person. And so I have additional concerns or additional questions. And I think I had the privilege of hearing your last week's episode, I think it was, and, you know, what you, I think, said, Gillian, around particular issues that we know in community because we've lived as criminalised, or we've lived as marginalised, or we've lived as pathologised, and particularly older people who have lived through longer and more regressive periods come to the question of how they age with additional queries beyond and above the average older person. And so this is meant to give you a one-stop shop to answer a lot of those concerns.
Well, that's fantastic. And that brings us to Fran. Well, if I may call you Fran, is Fran okay? Because it's
lovely.
Francis.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, you're an out and proud trans woman. You're a retired GP.
That's right.
And you're a researcher, educator, poet and performer. And you're a member of the Silver Pride Advocacy Network Living Experience Advocacy Panel, which will now be called LEAP.
LEAP, yes.
You got that. So, Fran, give us a little bit of a differentiation, if you like. We've sort of had the advocacy side, which you're involved in. Then there's the, you know, the information, if you like, side that you're looking after, Michael. So, Fran, where would you say you fit in amongst this?
Well, I'm one of the 15 LEAP members that Joe alluded to before, and we have the opportunity, thanks to the Advocacy Network, to provide our thoughts, feedback, and ideas about a whole range of advocacy that LHA does. And that's a really lovely opportunity.
So you're sort of part of an expert panel, if you like, you know, a hive mind or a brains trust.
And well, we worked out at our training session, we had more than 250 years of lived experience between us. So
wow.
You'd hope you could extract a little nugget of wisdom out of that.
Yes. I'm happy for you to be, you know, like looking after me, because essentially, you know, obviously we still have voices within this, I'm sure, but, you know, you leading things with your experience and coming from the place that you are. And you say there are 15 members.
There's 15 members. We a very diverse group. Pretty much all the letters of the beautiful alphabet rainbow are represented. And within those 15 people, who are all 65 and over, there are quite a few intersectional challenges represented. So it's not just a group of smiling fabulous oldies. It's a group of smiling fabulous oldies who have a lot of experience of life.
And what do you say? Have you got some top issues that perhaps, you know, you're tackling as priorities? What would you say some of the, you know, the top issues are that we're facing?
For me, the most important issue is quite simple. It's visibility. Old people disappear into the not useful department within our society, which is terrible. And queer people, particularly people who are now in their 60s and 70s, have lived through either being invisible or needing to be invisible.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the consequence of that is when queer folk are engaging with the healthcare system and with life, their particular needs and their particular heritage tends to disappear. So if as a member of LEAP I can be visible and noisy and no one's ever accused me of being shy, then I'm doing some good for my peers.
Actually, what you mentioned about visibility and our, perhaps our need not to be visible. I mean, I'm sure Pete and I, we've both spoken about, being in at work for many years. I think there's also an issue with us feeling safe to be visible in our older years as well. I suppose you are leading the charge by doing it, but for us to be able to speak up, whether it be about aged care or just general health, to actually be able to say, look, I'm a lesbian and, I have these concerns.
Yeah, and obviously you don't want to go back into the closet as you get older, which is what happens a lot of the time.
Yeah. Yes.
I have a particular bias, of course, being a gender diverse woman. I transitioned fairly late in life and certainly don't have passing privilege most of the time. So my visibility is fairly constantly a challenge.
Yeah.
And the prospect of my life experience taking me into residential care is actually quite terrifying.
I just got the chills when you said that, Fran.
Thank you, darling.
Yeah. Because I think, yes, it's very real, the idea that we fought this hard for our rights and to be visible, but the idea of, now going into aged care and the people that, you either can't go in with your partner or you've got to go back in the closet because, you're not, it's not diversity and inclusion has not been there in the aged care system. Are you going to help with that, guys?
Absolutely.
We certainly are, and I think that's been a large part of the focus of the LEAP so far, is about trying to increase the cultural appropriateness and the safety of our aged care. It could be through a whole heap of different ways. It might be by speaking at conferences, giving feedback on resources, LGBTI resources for aged care providers. Participating research is another one. So a whole heap of different activities that the LEAP's been involved in.
And what are some of the other issues, Jo, that you've uncovered as part of the advocacy, the Silver Advocacy Network?
I think it does get back to what Fran is talking about, and that is about visibility and also about safety. We have a sister project called Silver Rainbow that does training for aged care providers, and some of the LEAP members are involved on an advisory committee for that project and feeding into that project to help make sure that the training is available and taken up by aged care providers and is well informed by people with living experience.
I mean, that seems to me a challenge in itself because you can offer up this training, but if aged care providers aren't interested, because presumably they'll have to pay for it, what can you do? Is there a kind of government incentive or anything that can persuade aged care providers to jump onto it?
Yes, it's true that there's a lot of competition because, we're going through a period of aged care reform. And we've had some terrific feedback on our Silver Rainbow project and the partners, our partner organisations in the different states and territories who implement it. So that's a really good thing. We also do, for example, we've had elite members attend conferences and be on panels at conferences, and we were in the process of developing some Vox Pop video clips. So they're short video clips of interviews with some of our elite members where they've responded to questions like, why is it important for LGBTI older people to have a voice around ageing and aged care? And what's one key message you want aged care providers to know about older LGBTI people? And we're going to be using those as part of conference presentations. And it's very powerful, I think, to hear from people themselves about what it's like. You know, just as Fran was talking about her concerns about residential aged care, we know the power of people's voices.
And of course, we also want mirror balls in all the dining halls of the aged care facilities. But seriously, with the
could I jump in also, just Julian, in answering the question you asked about the challenge in getting aged care providers to be kind of to pay or to just do it. One of the things that we are able to see, it certainly in the area where I'm doing also policy and advocacy at a national level, is that the issue is probably less that it's either costly, although that could be an issue, or that there's active hostility towards doing a capacity building or training kind of program. It's to a significant degree about the massive reforms that have followed the Aged Care Royal Commission, which completed about 5 years ago. And we're going to have a new Aged Care Act that begins in about 2 months' time. So that's the act that governs the entire system. That is a replacement for an act that we had 20 years ago. So it's a big reform, 25 years ago, and it's a new human rights centred Aged Care Act. So these are really wonderful, important changes. But there is what you will hear if you talk to any aged care providers at a kind of a gross level, a reform fatigue. They are needing to be compliant with the Act when it begins. And so things like diversity can inadvertently, and there are obviously people who are bad apples. I don't want to pretend that they're not, but also majority are not probably, and they are just prioritising things that they see as the big priorities. And diversity, yes, important, but not just yet, or we don't have the capacity to do it just at this time. So that I think money could be an issue, but I just wanted to kind of put the context of what we observe at LHA as being one of the main barriers to getting them to do the training or to do the sensitisation.
And that does make sense. But has LHA had any say in the drawing up of the Act? Like, have your voices weighed in?
I'll have a go, and then anyone else wants to jump in, please do, Fran or Joe. Look, it's a massive reform project, and the government did a significant amount of consultation. In fact, they delayed the implementation of the Act that should have begun in July to November because of the huge amount of feedback they received. So yes, groups like ours and those also representing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander aged care providers and those representing culturally diverse organisations where we can speak to each other as consumer peak organisations, and we provide input and feedback. And, the government has engaged across all the sectors, so not just the aged care providers. There has been engagement with consumer peaks like us, and in this case for LGBTI people specifically. But as I say, there are other intersectional groups that I've just mentioned as well, all really important. Like, for example, and I'm not sure if I'm anticipating a later thing, so please do feel free to jump back in and tell me to wait. But there are provisions in it which I can talk to, which, I'm a lawyer, I'm not going to be arcane, but there's stuff in it that is promising.
Great.
But it is still an act, and I can provide detail if you'd like. But in short, we all know that, what's on the books and what that actually means in terms of the care someone receives. There's a lot of stuff in the middle that needs to happen to make that real. So
but hence the visibility and getting the message out there so that at least we're hearing it. We're seeing these vox pops. We're aware of it as an issue. And, therefore people are taking it on board, like even people in the general public that would not have even considered the special difficulties that I'm just going to say queer instead of going through the whole acronym. People have aging, you can't just lump us all together. Everybody has their own specific ones. And if you're being out there and getting the message out about what our particular ones are, then, knowledge is power, isn't it? So you're attacking it from different ends.
I think that's a good summary. I think that from the top, from the bottom, from the middle, this is basically a massive cultural change project, and, legal reforms that force, in theory, providers to do things like treat people with dignity and respect, which is one of the new provisions in the new Aged Care Act. Of course we support that.
Yeah, we have to have the legal, don't we? We have to have it.
But we just, as much as you've correctly identified, Gillian, and what Fran and Joe have talked about with the advocacy, with the prominence, with the visibility, nothing on its own is enough. It's, to really get us where we need to. It's something in concert. So sorry, I know, Fran, you were about to jump in.
I wanted to add that while it is self-evident to us and certainly to our listeners that our human rights are as valid as every other person's human rights, and it's wonderful that the new Act has a human rights underpinning. I think it's worthwhile knowing that there are quite a few bits of high-quality, qualitative university research going on at present into the welfare of queer folk in residential care.
That's great.
And I have the good fortune of being on a steering committee for two of those things. And we've got a new Act, but we've still got to gather evidence to push that there are lots of ways of understanding that this does really matter.
Exactly.
And then, Joe, you are there to make a noise if these things aren't happening. We're not getting the message,
That's very true. And I have to say that we've got lots of people like Fran who are terrific at making a noise.
Thank you, Joe.
Well, absolutely. We need it all. I mean, that's why we're here, still queer, for exactly the same reason. The more ways that we can tackle it, some just through pure entertainment, it doesn't all have to be political or, some of it can just be really validating about who we are and, and showing how strong we are. We need all sides, but we need to be coordinated. Like what I'm learning right now from talking to you and hopefully our listeners is fantastic.
It is.
You're listening to Still Here, Still Queer, where Rainbow Elders rule.
And you are on Still Here, Still Queer. I almost said another show. And
well, that's it. You're a little media butterfly, Pete.
It's Pete and Gillian here tonight.
All right. So we've talked a fair amount about aged care, but I'm 60, right? So I've just joined the group, if you like.
I'm 70, so I'm in the group. Clearly.
So we're not quite ready for aged care yet. But I'm certainly feeling the 60ness, though, and certainly in trying to find work. That's really proved very challenging. What other things can you do with the Silver Pride Advocacy Network that help us as we are sort of getting older and navigating our way and find out what our rights are?
I think that's probably one to pass over to Michael and to talk about the Silver Pride Navigator and the types of resources that are in train for that website.
Which hasn't arrived yet, so don't go looking for it. When do you think it will get released, Michael?
Yes, imminently. We're pregnant with excitement. It will be probably September, maybe October. We're just ironing out some technical things. Terrific. And also ensuring accessibility and testing. So that's quite important to get that right before it goes. So it is imminent. It's really not next year. So just to be clear, but yes, it will be easily searchable under Silver Pride Navigator as it. I'm sorry. also the sound got a little bit worse just when you came back on now. So I just want to double check, Gillian, your question was about what could people do who are not there yet.
Yeah, not quite to aged care yet, but, still we've got some challenges that we're, already facing the 60ness and 70ness, what, will Navigator help us?
Okay, sure. Yeah, look, the Navigator definitely takes a wider view than it's all about getting a government-funded, subsidised service, which will either be, someone coming to your house or it's going into residential aged care. Like, there's a recognition, I think, certainly when we've thought about this, that, there's a whole array of questions, like you're saying, Gillian, you've had for yourself, that people will ask themselves who are very much active and very much not believing that they're at that point of, say, if they are ever interested in residential aged care, or for that matter, even, at home sort of care services. And so, there are, I guess, resources there that direct people to the different visiting services. So this is, again, maybe not quite for you personally. I'm not sure.
But this is all sort of health where it's mainly health-based, is it? Where you need extra care.
It's an interesting question because, health and aging, it gets in the same portfolio and people sometimes think they're kind of the same and there's obviously overlap. But I'm actually not really specifically thinking about health when I'm saying all of this. It is more about aging. So, for example, there is a service called the Aged Care Community Visitors Scheme. So it's got a long name, ACCVS. So we can just call it the Visiting Scheme. And that, for example, again, I'm not sure for you personally, but just for the listeners more broadly, that's a isolation-related service. So matching up invariably another queer or LGBTI person who, through a state-based org, so this is all national, this exists around the country, although to varying degrees, to be fair, but it is, national, and someone who can be, I guess, a safer person, that the older person feels that they would actually want to have in their home. So these are not formal services. This is not part of the aged care system that the federal government regulates. So
again, not something I would have thought about. But yes, you would like to be in conversation with, at home with somebody, that you can talk no holds bar with, rather than, as you're saying, like almost going back into the closet and just talking about straight stuff type thing.
Right. That checking we all do, and, maybe someone you don't know where they sit.
Is this going to be too shocking for you or make you feel uncomfortable?
Right. And also I should add that it doesn't need if people are thinking, look, I'm not someone who just wants to sit at home and have tea all day, that's not the only thing. Like, it also can be outings. It can, people go out and do what is mutually agreed to, the visitor, the person who's the recipient, become friends. And I think, Joe, I'm not sure if I'm remembering correctly, but I think one of the members of the SPAN talked about how fabulous it was having been matched with a queer person.
That's right. We've got someone who is part of the Silver Pride Advocacy Network, LEAP, who is an aged care, LGBTI aged care volunteer visitor, and she visits LGBTI older people in Queensland, where she lives, as for social support. Basically, I must say that the person who does this is 80 plus, the volunteer. So,
love it.
But I guess the other thing I was thinking of in terms of the Navigator, you've got a section there, Michael, that talks about dealing with challenging circumstances. Yeah. So bereavement and loneliness, staying safe, connection, that kind of thing, which can occur for queer folk at any age, really, but particularly as we get older.
Yeah.
Yes, and we've had those issues mentioned many times when we've been talking about the show and what issues it needs to deal with.
Yes.
Isolation,
being number one.
How do I meet other people of the same age? Are there networks, etc.? So there's a lot of that.
Because I think it's also that once you do start to feel isolated, this is what I've heard. You lose energy. You start to actually atrophy, if you like. It's almost you need that. Once you've had that interaction that reminds you of who you are and your vitality, that actually does kind of restore your energy and make you more optimistic. So Michael, you look like you were going to agree or say something.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really powerful thing, like you've described. Joe's just reminded me, and unfortunately this is, one of the darker sides, but I think it's important when we think about isolation and the broader context beyond, government services, which is the elder abuse element, which we know is a problem systemically, maybe societally. Like, it's sadly not restricted to any subset of older people. It happens across the board. And we also don't know that there are particular dynamics that are in play for LGBTI older people who may be experiencing elder abuse because of the issues that, for example, people may be blackmailing them, or for want of a better word. Elder abuse, just to be clear for listeners, isn't all about physical abuse, although physical abuse is very serious, but there's financial abuse. There are non-physical versions of elder abuse, and that's something that we do provide trusted advice in this area about challenging circumstances, because that experience we know is isolating.
Yeah, and you may not speak up because if it is sexuality related, you may not therefore go and speak up because you feel ashamed or, so it sort of compounds.
Compounds is the perfect word. So it is obviously incredibly serious for any person, but there are these additional compounding factors that come into play, families, who seek to come in at a time when someone may be more financially vulnerable or physically vulnerable and who have had a history of poor relationships. So I'm sure we're all nodding our heads.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, sadly. I didn't mean, sorry, I just mean like the concept is familiar, so yes, the compounding factors for an LGBTI older person, when we know generally that elder abuse in all those forms, physical and other, is such a serious issue that is can be a sort of a precipitant of isolation.
Yes. Well, on the upside, we've had a bit of correspondence, Peter.
We have, yes. Can you read it from there?
I can. Hello, Pete, Gillian, and your three guests. It's so reassuring to learn from tonight's programme that so much has been done on policy, advocacy and legislation to ensure that us older queer folk do not have to return to the closet when we need aged care support. Well done to all of you for your passion, drive and commitment. And that's from Bartley.
Thank you.
Round of applause, I think.
Thank you. I haven't got any
terrific.
cheers.
You've got one there.
And we've got another one here too. As a gay man, aged care terrifies. Grant.
Yes.
I think that's a very common
Well,
thing
Fran said exactly the same thing, didn't you, Fran?
Yeah, from everyone I know who's in their 70s, they're going, oh, no, this is terrifying to do, to understand. Even the rules and regulations around it are so difficult to understand sometimes. I know.
And just the prospect.
I know with my own parents when they had to go in some years back, the rules and regulations were so complex that we had to get an advisor to advise us on them. I mean, I don't know how people can work through it without having family or friends.
You get on the navigator.
Obviously, the navigator is going to go away to helping that. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, Fran.
Well, I was going to say that we're in a challenging social situation presently, and I'm referring to the pushback against queer rights around chunks of the globe. Yeah. And recently I've come across stories where nursing homes that used to put up banners for Pride Month are choosing not to.
Oh no.
No. And they're not frequent stories, but it has happened. And again, being visible and reminding people who are in a position of significant power over our welfare, reminding them that there are things in our life that give us joy that are fairly simple to help with.
Yeah.
And
disco balls, you've just mentioned.
Yeah. But also communication, communicating with other humans of a similar bent to us.
Yeah, indeed. And Michael, you had something as well, I think.
Yeah, and it's really concerning what, Fran's just drawn attention to, but it's important for that to be in the conversation. I just wanted to also just respond to your question of that challenge that also, Peter, you said about navigating, and like, yes, the Silver Pride Navigator is very good, but there's also the Care Finder. So this is a service that exists that is public, federally funded to support people. I mean, it's got a framing about people who are particularly isolated, who don't have other support. So it assumes, no partner, maybe no family, etc. And they exist all around the country, these Care Finders, and they are there to help do, Peter, what you described as so challenging that you could help your parents with, and even you had to go to someone else. This is publicly funded. The service is in a few parts of the country. There are those who are supposedly tailored to LGBTI people's concerns, but they are few and far between, to be clear. They're not in every state. So nevertheless, it's there for all Australians regardless, and it is meant to address that exact question. These are Care Finders. So if people want to look for that, and again, like, this is not to suggest it's adequate or culturally sensitive in the most extensive way that we might want, but it is part of the architecture that is there to do that one-on-one helping.
Great.
Yeah.
Fran.
Okay. We might just take a
Fran had a hand raised. Come on, I want to hear Fran.
All right.
Okay. Two things. LHA's commitment to listening is wonderful. All of the members of the LEAP were invited to a hard-working workshop. Michael is a terrible taskmaster.
Oh, dear.
And we went over the portal for the Navigator piece by piece. And everyone got to have their commentary given back to Michael about content, layout, process, and the email chain that followed was monumental. We gave Michael lots of work, and I would just like to put on record that I'm really impressed with the portal.
Wow.
It's an easy tool to use, and that's whether you're computer literate or not.
Well, it's fraught, isn't it, Michael? If it's called Navigator and you can't navigate it, so obviously, you've taken that on board.
And if we need to have a break, lovely. But I'd like to talk about, if I may, my experience of the use of a Care Finder. Yes, so last year I registered for my aged care for the first time using the online Commonwealth sterile portal.
Oh dear, we know it's not going to go well.
And it was just a business.
Oh.
I eventually got an assessment and I was treated with respect, but there didn't seem to be any opportunity to seek a queer-friendly process at all. I got referred to a faith-based organisation, and that can have challenges, but I wasn't on the receiving end of challenges. The provider didn't make me aware of any LGBT positive alternative. When I was doing testing and feedback on the Navigator portal, I learnt that when you log into the government site, there is an option, if you go finding it, to select LGBT status as part of the provider selection process.
That's interesting.
I had to go looking. And Navigator told me there's such a thing as a Care Finder. I chased a Care Finder in southeast Queensland, and strictly speaking, my geography wasn't looked after. But the Care Finder who looked after a chunk of Brisbane and Cairns responded to my email. It was just lovely, this softly spoken, out and about young gay man came to my home, talked about what I needed, chased up an assessor for me that he was happy to endorse as queer friendly, and then took me off his books because I was in the process. And it was just absolutely wonderful.
Well, that's a wonderful testimony, isn't it? That's fantastic. I'm getting quite excited, and I think for those of us who are younger, it's also, we start to understand what it's about now. We can prepare, but we can also help. As
exactly.
in, whether we visit people or we can be making the noise, we can help change happen. So we've got some questions.
This show, of course, is trying to make a bit of noise about all the issues as well.
I was also going to mention the Older Persons Advocacy Network, or OPAN, just in case there are listeners who are in the aged care system some way or other, or if you know somebody who's having difficulties with their service provider, for example, OPAN offers free, independent and confidential support for older people receiving aged care, government aged care. So you can look them up on the internet, Older Persons Advocacy Network, and they'll work with you individually.
Fantastic. Now, we've had a bit of correspondence. A question, what is the LHA organisation and how does it relate to Silver Pride?
Well, we do know that the L actually is not just an L. It is the LGBTQIA plus health organisation.
In Australia, yeah.
Yeah.
And they set up Silver Pride, is that right, Joe?
Yeah, that's correct. So LGBTIQ plus Health Australia is a peak LGBTI community organisation. So it's a peak for a whole heap of state-based organisations, for example, ACON in New South Wales and the Gender Centre in New South Wales and different similar state-based ones. So we're a small organisation of about 20 people, and the Silver Pride Advocacy Network and the Silver Pride Navigator that we've been talking about today are projects of LHA, and you can Google Silver Pride Advocacy Network to sign up to the newsletter. You can Google LGBTIQ plus Health Australia to find out about our other projects.
Well, you've just answered the next question, which was, how can listeners get involved or learn about Silver Pride Advocacy Network?
Now, I had an addition to that, which is there much in Melbourne or Victoria?
Because you are New South Wales based.
New South Wales based.
No,
the network is national, isn't it?
Yes, and LHA is a national peak organisation, and the Silver Pride Advocacy Network is a national network. Anyone from around Australia can sign up to our monthly newsletter. And yes, we have some people in Melbourne who are on our LEAP, so we've got 4 from Victoria and 2 from Melbourne. And we did also have a fabulous 2-day training workshop.
That training was only a few weeks ago, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah, it was at the beginning of May. Yeah.
Now, Michael, you had your hand up.
I'm happy for you to take more questions. I just had a general reflection on Fran's sort of description of her very good experience with that care finder, and which is so encouraging. It sort of is like an encapsulation of the kind of what I sometimes think of as the tightrope we're walking in providing information through the Silver Pride portal. Through the Navigator. It used to be called the portal. I've just had a brain fart. So Silver Pride Navigator. And the tightrope is that because of histories of trauma and discrimination and criminalisation and all the things we know, pathologisation, which are so real and not imagined, they're so real for many people, sadly, and particularly older people, there is a cultural reluctance, and we know it's not just LGBTI older people, about, oh my God, I've heard it 3 times here this evening. I can't imagine going into aged care.
Yeah.
And everyone thinks it's about going into residential, which is obviously one version. It's the minority of people who receive aged care services are actually in residential aged care. Majority are getting it in home. And so there is a bit of a piece for us, and, we have to be, and this is what we try to do with the Silver Pride Navigator, which is to try to recognize experiences of people like Fran. That is, the system is changing. The system is improving. There are good people who will not every person involved in the aged care system is some fuddy-duddy who's homophobic and transphobic and interphobic and, like the imagined everyone is just awful. But there are obviously examples of that continue. We continue to hear about it. And in terms of what is able to be vouched for as LGBTI welcoming service or sensitive services, there is a new scheme. It's called the Specialisation Verification. It's a federal government recognition if your provider or if a provider has actually met certain criteria. So there's like these ways of saying it's not just anecdotal or past, I've heard bad things, that people can look to, and there's information on the Navigator about is this something that has been verified or hasn't been verified as LGBTI friendly? But the reality is it's an evolution. And so we're trying to strike a balance between neither saying, look, it's all new and it's fabulous and everything's changing for the better, but also encouraging people, because people do need the supports at parts of their life. And we don't want people to completely avoid trying anything because, like Fran attested to, there's some really good experiences.
Well, it's, exactly right. So when you talk about the visibility, it's not just about us being visible, but it's about changing that stereotype that we all have. It's going to be a nightmare with aged care. If we can, with you guys speaking, hopefully us amplifying as well, break that down so that more people will engage with those services instead of either sticking their head in the sand or going, I'm just not going there. And that in turn will improve the services, because the more of us that then engage and then feedback, the better it's got to get, surely. Somebody wants to know how they find the newsletter you spoke about, Jo.
Sure. So it's very easy. Just Google Silver Pride Advocacy Network, and that will bring up our webpage. And there's a little subscribe button that you can press on. Pop in your email address and your name, and you'll get the newsletter.
And I can vouch for that. I did it a couple of weeks ago.
Have you done it?
Yes.
Well, I better get on to that.
Newsletter already. Yes.
It's the time. We're just going
toward the end of the show now. We've only got 3 minutes left, so
it's been amazing, and so, but it does
information.
It does still feel so much just the start of the conversation, though, doesn't it? There's so much we haven't even scratched the surface. I hope, Michael, you will let us know when Navigator does come on board, and whether maybe we can talk to you again to help us navigate it, to actually go, this is where that is and this is how you find this out. Because I don't think, we can give this too much airtime, really.
No, absolutely not. Fantastic. And I just wanted to say thank you as well for coming on Zoom on a Sunday night to talk about all these issues. It's been an absolutely fabulous conversation.
Yes.
And we're heading in the right direction, I think.
I think we are. That's not a cue for a song, is it? No, it isn't.
No. But it's a cue for us to end.
But Fran, Michael and Jo, thank you so much for giving us the benefit of all your wisdom and experience. We will put a podcast together for this. For anybody that's joined us late and gone, what did they say? and we'll send you links, guys, so that you can spread it around.
And we'll let you know when that's up as well.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
It's been great. Thank you.
And thank you,
really
Pete.
fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another Joy podcast, brought to you by Australia's LGBTQIA+ community media organisation, Joy. Help keep Joy on air. Head to joy.org.au. Joy, a diverse sound for a diverse community.